Mystery Brothers. Mystery Brothers.
Mystery Brothers.
Mystery Bros.
Mystery Brothers.
Mystery Brothers.
Mystery Bros.
All right, man. So, episode 10. We're on episode 10 now of the Mystery Bros podcast. I'm excited. 10 whole episodes. Yeah,
We've gone such a long way. We've come such a long way.
We have. We've done a lot of cool topics. We've done a lot of cool topics. This week we are going to be talking about the Zodiac killer. All right, this is a first for Mystery Bros. We're talking about a murder mystery. This is the first one. We probably won't talk much about like murder mysteries and stuff. Like the reason we're talking about this one is because it's a very famous case. The killer is still to this day unknown.
I mean, it's extremely famous. There's more people that have died from other serial killers, but what makes this so intriguing that it's so public, that he sent letters, that he warned people.
He got away with it for so long, and then ultimately got away with it. He's just never
been
caught.
Found.
They do have some suspects, and we're going to get into that later, who suspects could possibly be, but they never officially arrested anyone or, truly had like legitimate evidence that they knew who it was. So that's what makes it kind of unique and interesting. So we'll talk about it, but I don't think we'll do too many murder mystery episodes. So this is a special one for episode 10. Special episode.
We'll do here and there some popular ones.
Yeah. I mean, only if it's a mystery. Only if the guy got it. Which doesn't really happen that much anymore, man. It's really hard to get away with stuff now. You can't get away with any of that stuff. You're gonna get caught, which is a good thing. Just saying, which is a good thing. But yeah, that doesn't. There's not very many murder mysteries anymore. Usually they get found out. But yeah. So with that said, first we'll kind of go over the whole timeline, all the like official murders, all the letters, that kind of stuff. We'll go over everything in chronological order. And then afterwards, we'll talk about possible suspects and who it could be. Also, we may have a little quickie conspiracy for you here because, we're all watching The Last Dance.
Oh, yeah,
right?
I want to see some Michael Jordan.
So everyone's interested in Michael Jordan. Everyone's talking about MJ. So there's an Michael Jordan conspiracy theory that I honestly truly believe it. I really do. It's really funny how they skipped over it so swiftly, so nicely in the documentary. They just talked about for very short time, then moved it right along. And I'll expose it for you. Okay, I'll expose it for you. MJ's not going to like it, but I'll expose it for you. So we'll talk about that. But let's get into it here. So the Zodiac killer. This all happened in California, up more towards the Bay Area, right? Like Northern California. So it all started December 20th, 1968.
Well, first off, we should say the Zodiac killer has said to have claimed 37 murders.
Yes, 37 victims, but there's only like 7 confirmed. Right?
7 confirmed and 2 of them survived.
Yeah, 7 confirmed.
So
and 2 actually survived. So only like 5 deaths.
5 confirmed deaths from the Zodiac.
5 confirmed murders.
And even there's way more that some have, but just the way he went public with it still has people
Yeah. I mean, there's some serial killers that have a lot of murders, man. Like a lot of confirmed ones too. So this one isn't particularly high in death count, but it's just very public and very interesting and very
still
mysterious.
Scared a lot of people.
Absolutely. So we'll start from the beginning. December 20th, 1968 at 11 p.m. On Lake Herman Road in Vallejo, California. 17-year-old David Faraday and 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen. They were out at Makeout Point. Basically, is kind of what it was like. They were like in their car, who knows what was going on there. Basically, they were shot and killed in their car. Both of them dead. And yeah, I mean, Betty was found dead. Well, David was alive when they found him, but he died on the way to the hospital.
Yeah.
And the only reason that they found them and they could get to them is because somebody mysteriously called the police and said, I shot 2 people on Herman Road, basically. Like, he basically like called the police and said, I shot some people.
Yeah.
Come find them.
I mean, Jensen, she was shot 5 times in the back as she fled.
Yeah.
And was found 28 feet from the car.
Yep. They didn't know much. They couldn't really figure out much from that one. They had like maybe some shell casings, that kind of stuff, but they really did not have much evidence at all on this. So there wasn't really much they could do. So then about 6-7 months later, on July 4th, 1969, this was in Blue Rock Springs Park, which is also in Vallejo, California. It was same kind of situation, like kind of like out on like a, like makeout point area type of thing where it's like you're alone. It was 22-year-old Darlene Farron and 19-year-old Michael Mageau. Both were shot in their car. Darlene died and Michael miraculously survived. So this is the first surviving victim of the Zodiac killer, Michael Mageau. It was the second incident. And basically, Michael Mageau described him as a young white male, 26 to 30 years old, stocky, 200 pounds or larger. He was 5'8", with light brown hair and a large face. Whatever that means. Large face. But I think he's trying to say he's fat. No.
He has a big face, maybe a double chin.
Maybe, I don't know. But I mean, he said he was 200 pounds or larger, so he's a big guy, I'm assuming. But 5'8", 200 pounds or larger, 5'8", I think you're kind of fat at that point,
yeah,
right?
Dude, I'm
pretty fucking big.
I'm 5'7", and dude, I'm like I'll give away my weight. I'm like 165.
Okay. So yeah, someone who's 200 pounds or bigger and they're 5'8", is probably
they're an inch taller than me, and
probably
they weigh
They said stocky, but I think that I think he was fat. He was too scared to call his attempted killer fat. He was like, no, PC. I want to be PC. We don't want to body shame. We don't want to body shame murderers. No, this is back in 1960. He also described some of the attacks to police, and he basically said that a guy came up from behind the car, and he had a really bright flashlight, and he shined it on them, like right in their eyes, so they couldn't really see anything. And then he walked closer. He walked up to them, and basically just started shooting. And he shot Darlene multiple times, him multiple times. Then he walked away. And then he came back. Darlene like opened the car door and tried to crawl out. And so the killer came back and he finished off Darlene and then got in his car and zoomed the fuck out of there. But yeah, so again, they couldn't really get much from that. They couldn't find much evidence. Again, I think they found like some shell casings, and that was pretty much it again.
They're not getting far pretty quick.
Yeah. And again, I believe he called the police to tell them that he shot 2 people. He thought he murdered them, but turns out Michael Mageau survived. So then on August 1st, all right, so just less than a month later, because that was on July 4th. Now, August 1st. So on August 1st, 1969, just a month later, the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald all receive an anonymous letter from the killer, which is really, this is where this starts to get interesting. This is where it becomes kind of like a famous thing.
I know, this is where like it actually does come famous, because he's famous for these letters.
Absolutely. the letter had details about the murders that only the killer and the police could have known. Basic stuff like positions of the bodies, type of ammo that was used in the killings, and it also contained a cipher. Actually, I'm pretty sure each letter had a separate cipher, or each letter had a separate like
Code.
not separate code, but like separate cipher for them to figure out, and it made one big note basically. And it was like a brand new like cipher code that like he created himself. And he said that it would reveal his identity, and he demanded that the code be printed in the newspaper. And at this point, he didn't call himself the Zodiac, but he left his symbol. This is the first time he left his symbol, which is like it's like crosshairs with a circle around it, basically. So it's like basically like a circle with a big plus sign in the middle, and that became known as his symbol. Because then, just a few days later, August 4th, he wrote another letter to the newspapers where, again, he said, "You guys need to print this. Otherwise," he said, if they didn't print it, he was going to go on a killing spree.
Yeah, which scared a lot of people.
Yeah, and at that point, like, that's always an interesting debate. Like, do you give in and print it and give him the notoriety and stuff that he wants? Or do you hold back, but then potentially you could be the reason that more people die? Like, what's the debate there?
Isn't it like usually they don't? Because like most threats don't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the protocol is with that. I feel like if I was in charge, I feel like it's a win-win for the papers to print it. You know what I mean? Like people are going to be like super excited, want to buy more paper. People are going to buy their papers in the future so they get more information on it. And you don't have to be held responsible for him killing people. But I feel like according to like...
Did they publish it? They didn't publish it, did they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, we're getting to that. We're getting to that. Yeah, they did. And it's like, but from a psychology standpoint, it's like you're kind of giving him what he wants and egging him on to do more of this,
right? When
you give in and you print it like that, But from an editor's standpoint, from the paper, he's probably like, "Fuck yeah, we're printing that." I'm pretty sure they printed it the same day they got it, just like they were told to. In the movie, there's a movie about the Zodiac, which is based off of Robert Graysmith, I think, book. And we're going to get into him later. He basically like dedicated his entire life to figuring out who the fuck the Zodiac killer is. And he wrote some really interesting books, did a ton of research. And according to the movie, they printed it that day. They printed it immediately. But again, it's like, man, that's an interesting dilemma that you come across, right?
Yeah, because you're giving into what he wants.
Yeah.
To create public fear.
Yeah. But either way, they did print it. And on August 8th, a history teacher and her husband cracked the code. And it was very interesting. So this is what his code said. It's kind of like a run-on sentence, but I don't think that he used punctuation on purpose. Like when you're making a code, you're not going to use punctuation to come up with like codes for punctuation. You know what I mean? That just makes it harder to figure out and in a way easier to figure out because you know where punctuation goes. So that can, so I think that you just don't use it. So it seems like it's a run-on sentence, but basically it said, "I like killing because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and those I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to stop or slow down my collecting of slaves for the afterlife. Wow.
Damn.
Very interesting. So first off, he fucking lied. He said he was going to give out his identity in this code, and he didn't.
No, he just made a nice little...
He was like, skirt.
Yeah.
Nope. But, pretty weird. That's definitely, this guy
he really
enjoys
enjoys killing, gets a huge thrill out of it. Yeah. That's for sure.
Some people's heads are wired differently, man. Some people's brains are messed up, and that kind of stuff happens, So obviously he felt some sort of
like release,
gratification, and release something from killing people. But man, that's definitely a strange letter there. Strange cipher.
He's trying to get people scared.
Obviously, yeah, he's trying to get people scared. And I mean, he did a pretty good job of that. He definitely scared a lot of people.
Correct.
People were freaked out as soon as they figured this, as soon as they cracked the code, they obviously printed what it said, and it was very, very weird. People were, could you imagine if that was going on around you in your community? I'd be pretty fucking scared.
I'd be freaked.
Yeah. I'd be pretty freaked out. Seems like he likes to kill people a little bit younger, so I might be okay, but that's creepy,
If there's like a Detroit killer out here writing to the police, like, I just like killing people.
Yeah, and like I'm gonna collect slaves for the afterlife, all that shit. That's crazy. But okay, so September 27th, Lake Berryessa in Napa, California. Cecilia Shepard and Brian Hantrell.
He has a fascination with couples.
Yeah. That's his first 3 killings here were all couples on kind of like at like a makeout spot type of thing, like that.
Do you think like maybe he had like some like heartbroken love and he's like, all right, so if I can't get it, like nobody can get it, I'm just gonna kill you.
I mean, that's totally possible. That's a lot of instances have that going on. Basically they went out to, like I said, it was Lake Berryessa, so it's like this big lake area. And Brian and Cecilia were kind of having like a little picnic out there. Cecilia saw a man that was hiding behind a tree and kind of like looking at them. Super red flag in my opinion. I would for sure I wouldn't just go back to hanging out after seeing that. I'd figure that one out. But basically he came out from behind the tree. He was wearing an executioner mask that had the Zodiac symbol on it. So it's like a homemade thing or something like that. He took this like to the next level. Like, all right, I want to be this thing that I've created now. Quick question. Do you think he had that executioner mask with the symbol on it, so he chose that as his symbol? Or do you think he chose that as a symbol first and had a mask made? What do you think?
Custom mask? You
think it was a custom mask?
I bet you went all in on this. But he's like,
you think he made a custom mask? But like, what if that could get traced back? Like, I don't know. Interesting thought. I don't think that ever.
Although it's a little hard to get a custom mask. I can't just go on eBay and just like
but can give me a custom executioner mask?
Which I bet you I can get that now.
Yeah, you probably could now as like costume thing or something. Yeah, maybe. But that's what I'm saying. Maybe he bought something like that and it had that symbol on it, so he just chose that symbol. But anyway, we're getting off topic. Doesn't really matter. I was just wondering. So basically, he came out from on the trees wearing the executioner mask with the Zodiac symbol on it. He had a gun and also a big ass knife. He made Cecilia tie Brian up, and then he tied up Cecilia himself. He kind of tried to give them some like bullshit story. He said that he was like an escaped convict and he just wanted to like steal their car. And they were like, okay, whatever, like go ahead, take whatever you want. But then he started stabbing them. He stabbed Cecilia and Brian. He stabbed Cecilia a lot, and unfortunately she died. Brian, he was also stabbed 10 times in the back, but Brian ended up surviving.
Wow.
So this is
crazy.
Must
have been brutal to go through.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's insane. Like, being stabbed has got to be the worst. It's terrible, I'm sure. But yeah, so Cecilia dead, Brian survived. He managed to like get back to the road, and I think someone like noticed him, and then they ended up getting help. But on their car, they found carved into the car the Zodiac symbol, and then next to that it said Vallejo 12/20/68, which is the date of the first murders. Then it said 7/4/69, which is date of the second murders. The next that it said September, like SEPT, Sept 27/68, which was that day. And then under that it said by knife. So that's crazy. He like scratched that into their cars, or into Brian's car.
Damn, that must have taken some time. He took a big risk thing out there.
Yeah, I wonder. Do you think he did that before?
They just didn't notice
the murders? No, not that they didn't notice, but like they got out of their car, went to go lay down their picnic, and then he did that to their car and then came up to them, or if he did what he murdered them and then went and did that. It almost seems like that's pushing it.
That's risky. That's very risky.
That's risky if you did that after you murdered them.
That's just like you're just waiting for like something to happen.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna murder people, you got to get the fuck out of there right away. I don't know. Murderers are crazy, so who knows what he was thinking? But yeah, that's what he sketched that, like carved that into the car. Which is crazy. And then, again, like I said, Brian survived, but the guy was wearing an executioner mask, so he didn't really get a good look at him. He couldn't really give any sort of like description, anything like that, other than like, I think they said he was like a bigger guy, a little bit stockier, bigger dude. But other than that, he couldn't really give much of a description because guy had a mask on, and so you can't really see much through that. So that brings us to October 11th, which like that's less than 2 weeks after and in San Francisco, California. It was at the intersection of Washington and Cherry, and this one is a little. This is where it gets a little bit different. This is the first time where it wasn't like a couple, and it wasn't like out in the middle of nowhere. Like he was in a cab, and the cab driver got to the intersection of Washington and Cherry. The cab driver's name was Paul Stein, and he was shot in the back of the head in the cab by the passenger.
Yeah.
Some girls from across the street in the house across the street saw him, and they gave the cops a description. They said it was a white male, 25 to 30, stocky, reddish brown hair, and heavy rimmed glasses. So then when the cops finally got to the scene, they found some bloody fingerprints. Yeah, that was pretty much it. That's pretty much all they could find was some blood, a bunch of blood, and then there was like fingerprints in blood. But the girls who described him said that they saw him shoot the guy. He got out, and then he got back in and like did some stuff and then left. So they didn't know what happened. They didn't know what he did, but that was the description. And then there was a big old oopsie from the fucking San Francisco police. Somehow the dispatcher told police to be on the lookout for a black male. They said that they said it was a black male who committed the crime. So,
that's a little big. That's a huge little.
It's a big oopsie. That's a big oopsie because police rushed to the scene, and they saw somebody. There was two officers, Officer Donald Falk and Eric Zelms, and they came across a male that actually fits the description of of what the girls said, he fits the description perfectly. But because they were told to be looking for a black male at the time, they basically like asked him a couple questions and just let him go. And he got away. And it turns out later that was probably him, based on some stuff that he wrote in letters, which we're going to get to here. So that was a big fuck up.
Yeah, it's a huge.
They ended up getting the police officers to give them like a description, and like they came up with a good sketch. So that helped, I guess. They came up with a sketch of the dude that they thought that they talked to. But yeah, they may have had him, dude. They may have had him right there, and they just
deep down, I feel like there's something hugely racist with the PD there that like
definitely
that made that miscommunication.
Yeah, of course.
That made that miscommunication.
Of course, yeah. I'm sure it was racism. Like we said, this is back in 1969. That's not. So 2 days later, October 13th, the San Francisco Chronicle gets a letter from the Zodiac.
Oh,
and he claimed the cab killings. And then there was also a little piece of the cab's shirt, the cab driver's shirt, a bloody piece of his shirt in the letter. So that must have been what he was doing when he went back inside the cab. Remember when the girls saw him?
Yeah.
They didn't know what was going on. I'm sure he was probably ripping off a piece of the paper or a piece of the shirt so he could send it. Yeah, so it's
so he could be like, I did it.
Yeah. So he had a piece of the cab driver's shirt in the letter. And this letter got a little disturbing. Like he basically said, school children, this is a quote from the end of the letter. The letters were really long. The letters were really long and rambled on a lot, but at the end it said, school children make nice targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus and one morning and just shoot out the tires and pick off the kiddies as they come out. Ooh.
Which I think this actually scared a lot of people.
It did.
Because like people were like afraid to send their children to school.
Definitely. Yeah, people were
especially after afraid. 5 murders within like 2 years. First one was in 1968, right?
Yeah, first one was 1968. So at this point, it had been like about a year. Because it was the very end of 1968 when he committed the first murders, December 1968, and now it's October 13th, 1969.
Yeah.
So it's not even a year. You keep reading about all these people getting killed, and then in the letter, he says he's going to like take out kids and stuff.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's messed up. This is, I mean, again, at this point, they were not really very close to catching anybody. Or even, they really didn't have any evidence at all.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the bloody fingerprints they found didn't really like amount to anything.
They had no leads.
Yeah, they really had no leads at all. So yeah, that was not great. And he sent a lot of letters. He was sending multiple letters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of them were just, nonsense, just bragging, talking about.
Do you think after, because he didn't really commit a crime after that. Well, like there's a suspected kidnapping.
Yeah, we're going to go into that in a second.
But he didn't commit another death after that. Do you think
that we know of?
Do you think that these other ones were maybe like hoaxes? They came after like.
Hold on, we're going to get into that. But wait, we're not done with the story. So basically the last incident that we consider as a Zodiac killer, because eventually he wrote about it and he claimed it in a letter. But this was March 22nd, 1970. So
this is a while. I guess 5 months.
5 or 6 months later. This was on Highway 132 in Patterson, California. This is a crazy story. So Kathleen Johns, she was driving across the state to like visit her parents or something, and she had her baby with her. Not quite sure how old it was, but I think it was like a year or less. It was a newborn, something like that. And she's she's driving along, and all of a sudden, the car behind her starts like honking at her, telling her to pull over. So she's like, "What the fuck?" So she pulls over. It's a guy, and he gets out and he says, "Hey, your back tire, your back right tire is very loose. I can tighten it for you." You know?
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, okay, thanks." So he does that, gets out, tightens it. I say with air quotes, tightens the wheel. And
so he's not a good Samaritan, tightens the wheel.
Well, it just so happens that less than a mile or so down the road, her fucking tire just falls right off.
Oof, that's not good.
So, I mean, if you ask me, I don't think he tightened anything. I think he loosened the wheel.
We'll do a loosey-goosey.
Yeah, he loosened it so he could, get her to whatever. But so he pulls up beside her and says, "Hey, like, I'm sorry I tried to tighten that for you. Like, want me to give you a ride?" And here's where I would have said, "Fuck no." I mean, I guess this is back in 1970. There was no cell phones or anything like that, but I'm sure like another car would drive by or something, right? Like, I would say, fuck no.
I don't know. I feel I guess, but like at the same time, you're also in the middle of nowhere, so.
But cars drive by. It's
but
still
even if she said no, like what would have happened then? Could he just pulled out a gun?
Maybe he would have just like kidnapped her at that point, but I would have just said no. But
then maybe he pulls the gun and says, "All right, are you getting in the car or not?"
Obviously, if he pulls a gun, then you have to get in the car. Go from there. But I would have said fuck no at first. But anyway, she said okay. So she got in the car, her and her baby. They're driving for a little bit. They're riding in the car. Apparently, they started to pass some gas stations, and she was starting to get a little nervous.
Oh, really?
They passed a couple.
Oh yeah, that's what happened. That's why she got like on.
That's why she tried.
Where are we stopping? Like,
yeah, she was like,
going
"What's
to gas
going on?"
station.
Yeah, she's like, "What's going on? We're passing all these gas stations," and that's when he basically just told her like, "I'm gonna kill you," and it was kind of fucked up. He said, "I'm gonna throw your baby out the window while you're still in the car, and then I'm gonna kill you."
But like, why would he be so blunt about it? Now she knows, like. Well, it was just great. Like, as soon as you tell me that, no matter what, my first reaction is just to fucking open the door, and like, I don't care. If you said you already kill me, like, I don't care what happens.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what happened. Basically, he told her he was going to kill her, and she started freaking out, obviously, like, holy shit, what's going on? Then I guess they had to, like, come to a stop at one point, so they came to a stop, and she grabbed her baby and jumped out of the car and then like ran into like some fields and hid. This was nighttime, so he couldn't see that well.
He's like, fuck it.
Yeah, he couldn't see that well, and so he couldn't find her. He basically looked for her for like 10, 15 minutes, couldn't find her, and then just left.
Thank God the baby didn't just start crying.
Oh, I know, right?
Could you imagine hiding someone in the bush and the baby just starts crying?
Dude, I didn't even think about that. How did the baby not cry? You're running around like laying on the ground hiding. Like, I'm sure the baby's not like down with that. That would probably, damn, that's interesting. I didn't even think about that, dude. How did that happen? I don't know. Maybe she got the baby to just be quiet for a little bit.
Maybe she's like mother's instinct. Like,
started breastfeeding or something because it can't cry if it's eating. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's crazy. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, she got a baby. But yeah, later on he sent letters where he said he had a close call with a lady in a car on the highway or something. And so that's why they attribute that. He never in the car said he was the Zodiac killer to her. So that's what makes it kind of interesting. Some people think that these later incidents aren't the same Zodiac killer that was killing the people in the beginning.
I would definitely say this one is definitely like kind of just like jumps out because like, dude, he's such a skilled killer. He's killed like a lot of people, and all of a sudden just this person like, hey, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna throw your baby out the window.
Yeah, not very smooth, not very nonchalant.
And this is,
But maybe he gets off on that.
and
That's
this is
what he likes,
basically,
you know?
this is just off her testimony, right? Oh no, he sent a letter too.
No, yeah, he said in the letter. But who knows if multiple people may be writing these letters? You know what I mean? Like, we're gonna get into theories in a minute about possible suspects and stuff. We'll get into that. But yeah, it's just and basically he sent multiple letters, letters from 1971 to 1974. His last letter, he claimed to have killed 37 people, and he gave a movie review for the movie The Exorcist. He said it was like he said something silly too, like it was like the best like comedy he's ever seen or something. That like he was fucked up. He was obviously fucked up in the head, but he just wanted to be famous, I guess, and just wrote letters. And he gave many other ciphers in there too. Like I don't think any of the other ones were ever cracked. He gave in one letter he wrote. He said, "This is my name. If you can cipher this code, this is my name." And
maybe it was like just messing with people. Maybe it was like, "This is my name." Figured it out.
It probably was, it probably was his name, because there's literally no way to figure that out. You know what I mean? If you have no context as to what the code is, because this is a brand new code he created.
Yeah.
Then how are you going to figure out someone's name? Because you have nowhere to start. You know what I mean? Usually when you're figuring out a code, you start with like 3-letter words, like that's either and, was, you know what I mean? And then you can like start from there. But if it's only someone's name, there's no way to crack that code, right? Because you have no starting point. You have no point of reference. So he probably did. That probably was actually his name in the code, but no one could ever crack that. He was smart and stupid. You know what I mean?
He was definitely smart in code. Like he had some coding. Like he had to take something in coding.
Yeah.
Had they not gone back and like looked to see if like any of these murders were really, I know one that has found taking a coding class, but like they have to go back and like really
not
look
necessarily
at the
coding class. Like no, there is no such thing as like a coding class.
You have to know like basic of coding. You have to know some basics.
Yeah, that's something you could learn possibly in the Army or the Navy or something, like to learn how to break. You know, like they probably were taught it in a way to try to learn how to break a code, but at the same time, you're teaching someone how to create one, basically. He used like Greek symbols along with he like used codes that were already, or like symbols from codes that existed, but not the same code, obviously. Yeah. After 74, the letters just kind of stopped. And at that point, they didn't know what happened. No more Zodiac letters. And they still weren't, you know, they had some suspects at that time, which is what we're going to get into next.
I just can't see him like just living a normal life. Could you see him just like, all right, you know, this was fun for a little bit, but I'm done. I'm retiring.
No, that's usually not how that works with serial killers, man. Like,
or do you think maybe he was like, shit, dude, like if I keep going with this, like I'm going to get caught. Do I really want to spend the rest of my life in jail?
But that's a very rational thought, and most serial killers
maybe
are not rational people.
A lot of theories that I've heard is that like maybe that he was just doing all this like to make a public name of himself, because like he's one of the first ones to go public, like just to make it so public. Maybe he just wanted to create fear and get like the public interested in him. Maybe that was his goal, not the death weren't like, he wasn't like a regular serial killer in that mind where he need to kill people.
Interesting.
Where he's just trying to make people like make people want. He's more egoistic. Make people want to think of him.
That what he said in that cipher was made up? Like that wasn't real? We were saying like I'm collecting slaves for the afterlife, and
he's just trying. He's just
gets
trying.
My rocks off. You think that was all fake? He was just trying to get people.
He's trying to get people riled up, scared, get famous. Possible. Like it wasn't all about killing; it was more about like popularity to him.
Possible, man.
That's why people think that's what someone gave as an explanation to why like it just stopped. Like because if he was just a regular serial killer, like he wouldn't just like most wouldn't just stop.
Yeah, there are some other theories as to why that happened though too.
I know there's other theories, but that's just one of the theories. One of the more logic to that it wasn't really like he wasn't like just a crazy maniac. He was more of a wanted to get more attention to himself.
Yeah. We'll get into some suspects here. I think there's like 4 suspects, 3 that actually have some decent evidence. Let me start with the silliest one.
Right.
There's this guy named Gary Stewart, and he wrote a book called The Most Dangerous Game. No, it was called The Most Dangerous Animal of All. And he claims that his father, Earl Van Best, was the Zodiac killer. It's really, I guess it's an interesting book. I haven't read it, and most people think it's kind of bullshit. The only real evidence that he has is that his father does look a lot like the composite sketch that they came up with after the cops, like after he killed Paul Stein.
Yeah. I mean, it's just easy to say, like, oh, he looks like it must be him.
I know, yeah. And I really don't think there's that. Okay, so Earl
But
Van
I get
Best,
like how he can make some money off that because, like, hey,
I'm sure he
my
made a lot of
dad
money.
looks like
Yeah, I'm sure he made a lot of money. Earl Van Best is the same amount of letters in the cipher that I told you about that he came up with, that where he said my name is, and it was a code. Earl Van Best fits into that same amount of letters. Other than that, oh yeah, this is the one where they had his handwriting. Handwriting was a big thing here for the cops. They were doing a lot of like handwriting, like analysis,
which is like I feel like it's kind of stupid.
I don't know. I mean, the way people write is unique. You know,
Can't they just look at past?
I don't think you could ever.
Can't you just look at past writings and like just see how the person wrote?
Yeah, that's what they did. But you can't convict somebody on that. You can't be like, oh my God, your handwriting matches. It's you. Like you need to have more evidence. That's just adding on. That's just
but like just have someone write for you. Like, oh, can you write this real quick? Like, yeah, I'm just gonna write it just like the suspect.
Yeah, it works a lot better when you have something to go off of. But not everybody's handwriting is just out there. Right. But Gary Stewart got the handwriting from his dad's marriage license. And had that analyzed, and they said it was a perfect match. But then it turns out that his dad wasn't the one who wrote that. It was like the priest.
What if the priest? That would be like a double. I don't know, like he gives up killing to become you know how like
the complete opposite.
You know, like how big of a switch that would be. Like just to do like kill 5 people. God, well, they're saying I'm here for you.
Yeah, they're saying that like. No one's saying this. I don't think this is just all bullshit because eventually, once they figured out that was the priest's handwriting, it's like, oh, come on.
It's just funny. It's just funny to think about, like him becoming a priest. Like, no way, the murderer just like gave up his to become a fucking priest.
So that one's silly. But there's 3 other suspects that have a decent amount of evidence for them. So
so like one is Ross Sullivan. You would have to take into account an earlier murder that happened in 1966 that's unsolved.
Yeah, some people say this could be a Zodiac murder. And then like a lot of it's similar, right?
Yeah. So apparently he's claimed one of this in his confession letters that
in one of the letters he said something about that.
Yeah, that he did this murder.
He ended up claiming a lot though that weren't.
Yes.
So
and
anyway,
the thing is with him, so like that's why like. They don't have evidence, but this is an unsolved murder, and so he claimed it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the leading suspect to that murder. So if he did that murder,
Ross Sullivan,
and it happened to be that Ross Sullivan lived at that area because he was a student at that time taking classes, and then when the murders happened in the other places, that he lived in that area. It could have just been a coincidence, but that's
like the murder in 1966 happened, and that was in California too, right?
Yes,
in Southern California.
Yeah,
and then. Ross Sullivan moved up to Northern California, and then the murders continued up there.
Yeah, so that's
an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Do they have any other evidence on him?
So like they say like he was working on campus and he made people feel uneasy around him. This is like other people's testimony. He was working around Bates, so he obviously knew her, the person that he killed. He did not show up after Bates' murder and acted rather suspicious. It also said that Ross wore the same outfit and military-style boots after the murder. He wore a completely new outfit. Like, he just changed his outfit. Like, you should, like, just wear like, some kind of way and afterwards completely changed. He looks very similar to Zodiac's sketch in the physical description. The confession letter and the handwriting Ross was identical. Also very similar to Zodiac's. Same vocabulary and writing styles were used in the confession letter and the Zodiac letter. People at Riverside have stated that Rosa wrote creepy poems. Ross' own brother believed him to be the Zodiac. He took a cryptology class. I got that right finally. And he wrote an essay on how to disguise handwriting. And then he moves to Northern California in 1968. After his death, the Zodiac letters stop.
He died in 74?
Yep, and it stopped.
Interesting. I also saw that he had he basically had the same boots, military style boots that left the footprint at Lake Berryessa, which is one of the murder in 69.
Yeah.
One of them in 69. So that's interesting. There's definitely some information for him there.
He's definitely. I could see him I could definitely see him being him. It doesn't mean it is him, but it could be him.
Yeah, he's the one I think they have the least amount of evidence on for the rest of the murders.
Right.
Like I think that they have a
They have a
good amount
lot
on the first
on the 1961 that
the 66
that
one,
he claimed.
right?
Yeah, they claimed.
Yeah, that later on Zodiac claimed.
Yeah.
But there wasn't any other evidence for him being.
No, they actually looked back. They did 70 years later. They did an investigation, looking back, seeing if they can find new evidence. They're trying to go to the first murder, seeing if this was the real one. He might have not been great killer yet.
Oh, okay.
He was still in his early days, so he might be a little more sloppy as a killer.
Yeah.
Then later on, he was more skilled. So they say maybe he was sloppy, and they tried to find new evidence, and they couldn't really.
It's possible. But yeah, Ross Sullivan is definitely one suspect up there. Another one who I think has a little more evidence is Lawrence Kane. You heard of that one? So there was this one. There was another murder in 1970. A little bit later, it was a girl named Donna Lass, and many people think she may have been another victim of the Zodiac. Lawrence Kane worked at the same hotel that she worked at, which is interesting. So if that was a Zodiac murder, that puts him very close to it. There's also he was in the Naval Reserves, where he may have possibly learned how to do crypto coding, that kind of stuff. He was in a car accident in 1962, and he got a brain injury, and therapists and a lot of people have said that kind of messed him up in the head. He wasn't very good at controlling impulses, that kind of stuff. Yeah, that definitely, it compromised his ability to control urges, is what they said. He was arrested in 1961 for peeping, and then in 1968 he was arrested for prowling. Again,
good.
I'm not quite sure what prowling means exactly, but it can't be a good thing.
No, it's definitely something related to his other one.
Yeah, you got arrested. You get arrested for it, so that's not good. So let's see. Okay, so Darlene's sister, her name was Linda, and Darlene was one of the victims. I think the second murder, the second confirmed murder. She identified a photo of Kane as the man who she said was bothering Darlene at a restaurant. Ooh. Darlene worked at a restaurant. She was a good-looking girl. I think she, guys would say things to her, that kind of stuff. And I guess Kane was kind of harassing her. And this was in the weeks leading up to her murder.
He might have had a huge crush on her.
Yeah.
She kind of blew him off, and he was like, all right.
Yeah.
You're not blowing me off anymore.
Yeah. Messed up. One of the San Francisco police officers who saw the Zodiac, remember when those two police officers pulled him over and then they ended up letting him go after the Paul Stein murder, the cab murders in 69? And then it turns out that was probably the Zodiac, because he said later on in a letter that he had a run-in with the cops. And then one of those police officers identified Kane as the man that they saw. technically he didn't identify Kane, but he said he was shown a bunch of photos of like a lot of different suspects. He said this photo is closer to any other in likeness to that person. So that's kind of like identifying. Then the very last one that we talked about, the kidnapping of Kathleen Johns. Kathleen John was shown a picture of the Zodiac. Was shown a picture of Kane, and she identified him as her abductor.
Ooh, another big one. That's two.
That's big, right? She survived like unarmed or unharmed. You know what I mean? So it's not so like, yeah, that's a big one. A lot of people think Kane is a very possible suspect for some of these murders.
I mean, there's some evidence right there for them that it definitely could have been him.
Yeah. If you ask me though, this last one.
Oh, wait, I have a couple others.
Oh, go ahead.
So the another one they think is
Ted Cruz.
They
do actually.
Do you think Ted Cruz?
No, but like that was like people.
Oh
some
yeah,
people on the internet,
that's true.
Some people on the internet like actually made the claim. I think it had to be. It's got to be a joke though, because Ted Cruz was literally not even born while the Zodiac murders were happening. So it's literally impossible. But people have said that.
Yeah, I mean, in February 29th, 2011, American Most Wanted featured a story about the Zodiac killer. In a 2010 picture, surfaced of a known Zodiac victim, Darlene Ferrin, and an unknown man who closely resembles the composite sketch, formed by eyewitness description of the Zodiac killer. Police believe the photo was taken in San Francisco in the middle of 1966 and 1967, but cannot identify the man.
Well, that doesn't help. I get that. That's crazy. That's crazy, but that doesn't help.
I know, and it says it was taken between 1966 and 67.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, but that doesn't get you any closer to a suspect, like figuring out who it is. I think Arthur Lee Allen is one of the most compelling suspects in my opinion. So, like I said earlier, Robert Graysmith was, in many ways, he was like a detective on this case. He basically he worked at the San Francisco Chronicle, and he was the cartoonist for the San Francisco Chronicle while all this was going on.
Okay.
So he kind of worked in the office where they were getting the letters and they were talking about it. So he took kind of an interest in it, which I think it's kind of, I probably would too. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
And you have, you're seeing all those letters happen in real time and everything. But he basically dedicated like a very long time. Like he dedicated like 10 years of his life to investigating this and trying to figure out who it was. And he ended up writing a book. I think he wrote a couple, but his first book, he basically says Arthur Lee Allen, in his opinion, is the Zodiac killer. Mm-hmm. And there is a lot of evidence for him, man. Arthur Lee Allen was a fucked up dude. We know that for sure. Basically, he was questioned by police twice. And he basically police were going to arrest him. And we'll get to why here. So basically, Allen had talked to his neighbors and friends that he knew about wanting to kill people. And he talked about wanting to secure a flashlight to a gun and using that to blind somebody and then shoot them, which is exactly what he did during the first three murders, or the first two, when they were at makeout point or whatever. And he basically brought the flashlight, shined a really, really bright flashlight on them so they couldn't see, and then shot them. So, and he had talked about this with his friends. He was a fucked up dude, obviously. He was pretty messed up. He wore a watch, all right, that he always wore, and it was called Zodiac. It was a Zodiac brand watch, and it had the exact same symbol.
That's a huge sign.
That's a big one.
That's a big one.
he wore that watch. He owned the same caliber gun that was used in the Zodiac shootings. He had told his friend his favorite book is called is The Most Dangerous Game, which is, have you read that book? It's like a short story, The Most Dangerous Game.
What's it about?
It's about a guy who basically like he owns this like island. He's like this rich old dude. He owns this island, and people get like shipwrecked on his island, and then he hunts them.
Oh no, I've never read it.
That
sounds interesting.
We read that in English class. Like it's a famous short story. But he said he had told many people that was his favorite book ever. He wanted to hunt people. Like he said that kind of shit before to his friends, to people he knew. And that book was kind of referenced in his first like code. You know what I mean? He said like, I like to hunt people. There's the most dangerous game of all, you know, the most dangerous animal of all, which is very similar to The Most Dangerous Game. So that's something, you know, like, you know, that like this guy has like a lot of the same views and inspirations as whoever wrote those letters.
I have read that like do you have more evidence?
Yeah, there's a lot. The exact same day that Cecilia and Brian were murdered at Lake Berryessa, he had told his family that he was going snorkeling at Lake Berryessa. And then he went out, and when he came back home, his neighbor, who the police interviewed and told them like a lot of this stuff, his neighbor saw a bloody knife in his car, a big bloody knife, a lot like the one described by Brian as the one that he used to kill him or try and kill him and kill Cecilia with. And when his neighbor asked him about it, like, what the hell are you doing with a bloody knife in your car? He said that he used it to kill chickens, or he used it to like kill a chicken earlier. But that's kind of weird. He told his family he was going to Lake Berryessa to go snorkeling. And then he comes home, he has a bloody knife in his car. He says he was killing chickens. I don't know. Sounds a little fishy to me is all.
And that was the same time? That was around the same time as the stabbing?
It was the exact same day.
That is the
exact same day.
That is very...
Right?
That is very suspicious.
Right?
Yeah.
That is strange. I believe with this, the police were allowed to... They got a warrant to search his trailer. And they found some weird shit in there. They found like a bunch of guns, some that matched the same caliber and type that were used in some of the murders. They also found like dead animals, like animal body parts, like in his fridge and shit like that. Like he was fucked up. His trailer was like nasty and disgusting, they said. So, but they couldn't find any like physical evidence there to like link him. They said that he was also in the Navy, and he was, they said he was not honorably discharged. He was just discharged from the Navy. They didn't really get into too much detail there, but that's never a good thing. He also got fired from his job as a school teacher for, because there was some sexual misconduct allegations going on. And basically like they couldn't prove anything, but there was a bunch of allegations against him, and this school just fired him. So he lost his job. He was ambidextrous. He could write with both hands. So police said that like he would use one, like his non-dominant hand to write the letters for Zodiac, so it would look differently when they try and do like handwriting analysis, that kind of stuff. 'Cause he was a teacher, so they could get plenty of like handwriting analysis, but they said he was ambidextrous. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff. In 1991, police kind of reinvestigated him after there was an informant who was facing an armed robbery charge, said Allen boasted to him about killing a cab driver back in the day.
Ooh, that's another huge thing.
Yes. Michael Mageau, who is he was the person who survived the first attack in Vallejo, the second killings. He was the first person to survive, basically. He was shown a photo of Arthur Lee Allen. He identified Arthur Lee Allen as the man that tried to shoot him, or tried to kill him. Also, apparently, Linda, who was Darlene's sister, also identified a photo of Allen as someone who stalked Darlene. But she said the same thing about Cade. So maybe Darlene was that good looking and she had a bunch
maybe
of...
she had like a bunch of stalkers.
She had a bunch of stalkers, dude.
So maybe they're just like, oh shit, which one of these stalkers are actually like the Zodiac?
Yeah, they're like, well, we've got a list of her stalkers. So we have to, but yeah, either that's bullshit or maybe she had multiple stalkers. I don't know. But yeah, so there's a lot of evidence for him, man. A lot. Also, I forgot to say the very last thing. Police, after they searched his trailer and they found like the guns and stuff, they also like interviewed a bunch of like his friends where they told him all this stuff I was talking about. So basically in 1974, they were getting ready to arrest him. Like he was their prime suspect. They were like, I think we got enough evidence to at least go to a trial with him. So they're going to arrest him. And he died of a heart attack, I believe, like before they could arrest him. And that also was in 1974. And that's when the letters stopped. All the letters stopped in 1974. And that's right when he died. Man, I think that if you add up everything, there's just more from Arthur Lee Allen.
He is definitely the leading suspect.
Yeah.
I think the two things that like they couldn't confirm was the saliva from the stamps of the letters. Yeah, that is one thing. They said that they tested his DNA, but like, that doesn't necessarily mean someone else could have licked the stamps. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they said the retired police handwriting expert, Lloyd Cunningham, who worked on the Zodiac case for 2 decades, added, they gave me a banana box full of Allen's writing, and none of his writing even came close to the Zodiac, nor did the DNA extracted from the envelopes. So in my conclusion, I do not believe Arthur Lee Allen could have been the Zodiac killer. Okay. They also said that his fingerprints didn't match the fingerprints that they found in the cab, the bloody fingerprints they found from the Paul Stein murder. So that's another kind of knock against him. But so I don't know if you would have like been convicted if they brought him to trial. Yeah, it would have been tough. I mean, it would have depended on how much. Would you have convicted him? There's a lot. I mean, it depends on if they call like his friend as a witness and he explains all the shit that he said to him and like all that. I mean, that's convincing, but at the same time, physical evidence, there wasn't a ton, Robert Graysmith, like I said, he's the dude who followed this for the longest time. He really believes it was him. And I feel like he's probably the closest dude to this case. He's definitely the lead. He has definitely the most evidence for it. Yeah. But I don't think we can say definitively, there's some good evidence for a couple of them. This one he has the most, but we can't definitively say. You cannot say 100% sure that he's the killer. At this point, we cannot say that. Yeah. There's a lot of people that they say, oh, they possibly believe it was him, but it's really the only evidence they had is he looked kind of like the sketch, and somebody noticed that and then claimed it. You know what I mean? Yeah. A lot of them, there's a dude named Jack Terrence who a lot of people say, or not a lot of people, but this dude, Dennis Kaufman, it was his stepfather. He basically says he believes it was Jack Terrence, basically because he looked a lot like the sketch. He claimed to have a stash of incriminating evidence. It's just easy to do when you're trying to make an outlandish claim. There's just this stuff was all dismissed. There was I'm pretty sure there was over 1,500 people that were investigated at some point. So that's a lot of fucking people. It's tough, man. It is tough. San Francisco's a big city. Northern California is big. It's hard to and this is back in the 60s, man. They didn't have very DNA. You know what I mean? I think DNA wasn't even really a thing back then. No.
that wasn't until way later. They tested some people's DNA like way later and stuff, but you know, they didn't have all that stuff back then. There was no cameras in anywhere. You know what I mean?
I think people there was a show that investigated the case, went back and investigated the Zodiac case to see if they could find it with all this new DNA evidence and everything.
Yeah.
Because they said they've gotten other killers like this, like killers from 20, 30 years ago. They've found because of DNA, because like now what we can do.
But they don't have like a good source of DNA.
No, it's not for this case, but I'm saying like
that's the problem.
Technology has solved other unsolved mysteries 25, 30 years later.
If you have like some DNA from someone who was there, like, you know what I mean? Like it's just, they didn't have anything there. He didn't leave anything behind for them to get, like DNA wise. It's too bad. You know what I mean? And they couldn't collect DNA like they do now back then. You know what I mean? Like back then you can get like crazy microscopes and find like a piece of hair and then like take that and stuff. Like back then they couldn't really do that. They didn't even think like to look for like hair follicles on the ground and collect those. So they didn't get anything like that. So it's tough. It's tough. Again, like most things, we'll probably never know, you know? Especially if it was Arthur Lee Allen, he's dead now, so there's no way we're ever going to know.
Yeah. It's definitely like a very public and like scary case, because for like the people in like San Francisco, it was really very real. Like, yeah, especially the one where he says he's going to pick off like the kids like they were chickens or whatever he said. Yeah. Like that would scare you as an adult. Like, am I comfortable sending my like kid to school? Yeah, that was a big thing. I'm pretty sure like they had like police officers on school buses and stuff for a few days. Like shit got real. And yeah, back then things were a little bit different. The world was a little bit smaller. You know what I mean? Like I think that things like that were a little creepier back then. Yeah. So yeah, and it's crazy. Like if you ask me, obviously it was a dude that has some issues, you know, a dude that has some issues, maybe some like frustrations when it comes to, like sexual frustrations, because he seemed to like to kill couples. You know what I mean? Like some jealousy there. Yeah, you know, there's apparently, you know, Darlene and these girls like had some admirers or had some weird dudes that would follow them type of thing. So like, you know, people are weird. It's messed up, you know, that he just happened to be clever enough to do this cipher thing and send letters and not get caught. So he became kind of like famous. I think he liked that a little bit. Obviously he liked that a little bit. Because there's plenty of killers that don't do that. Right. You know? So yeah, it's crazy, man. Zodiac killers, messed up. Definitely. I don't think I'm going to go into the Michael Jordan conspiracy now, but what we're going to do that is we're going to throw that on to next week's episode. It's going to go with the Egypt episode next week. It's going to go with the finale. 9 and 10 are coming out next Sunday, baby. Yeah, and exactly. And the finale of The Last Dance is coming out next week, so we'll drop that episode the day after. So I think that we'll wait on the Michael Jordan thing. But yeah, so the Zodiac Killer, man. Big mystery. I wish we could figure it out. Wish we could solve it, but it's never going to happen. I mean, I don't know. One time we might find the DNA of the saliva. If we could find the saliva of the person who did the stamps, do you think that'd be pretty? If it was Arthur Lee Allen, or like if it was somebody that we know, some of the suspects, yes. But if it was like an entirely new suspect, do you think it was just like somebody? It was a Zodiac killer, or was there somebody that he like hired to like lick these stamps? I don't know. It depends on who it turned out to be. You know what I mean? But I guess I could find out some like DNA evidence somewhere. I don't think so. How are they going to go collect DNA evidence? I don't know what's forensic in 100 years. What is forensic in 100 years? Well, they might just do it for the fun of it. Will be completely dead by then, so it won't even really matter. They might just do it for the fun of it. Like, wouldn't you want to know who Jack the Ripper was? Yeah. There's some mystery there. We should do Jack the Ripper in an episode. Definitely. But I've got some interesting shit about Jack the Ripper. But anyway, yeah, I mean, but definitely they might do it in the future. They might like, who is this killer? Try to figure it out.
But I just feel like if you didn't get DNA from the killer at some point in their life, you're never going to be able to do that. And they could be dead. They're probably dead by now. If they were 20 to 30 years old in 1968, they're dead by now, probably, right? Or they're at least like 70.
They're
80.
up there. I mean, what's the point of putting someone in their 80s in jail? Like, I don't really find.
Yeah, I mean, you
lived your life.
You still would for sure, but you're just never going to find them, sadly.
Or it's like not really revenge, like, ha ha ha. You like, we got you at the end of your life.
Yeah, right. But I mean, yeah, that's just, we'll never know at this point. We'll never know. Too bad. But yeah, so we're gonna drop this episode along with our episode 11 on Amelia Earhart and the SS Orang Medan. And we're dropping both of those. We're gonna drop that one along with this one. Because we didn't do anything last week. We're sorry.
We've had the most time ever.
It's quarantine.
We were more diligent when we were working. We both had jobs.
Yeah, literally. When we were working at our jobs and we had less time, we worked. We did better with this podcast. Now that it's quarantine and we have all the time in the world, we fucked off last week. Didn't do anything. So we're sorry. So we're gonna drop 2 episodes this week. We're dropping this one along with episode 11, and then we're going to start again with an episode a week after that, every Monday.
Coming to you Monday.
Yeah.
We want to get you off some positivity in the beginning of the week because we know it's Monday. So I think dropping an episode of Mystery Bros lightens your week.
It's Monday. You're like, God damn it, I have to go back to work. I have to blah, blah, blah.
But don't worry, Mystery Bros is coming out that day.
But yeah, you don't have to worry because you'll have an episode of Mystery Bros. So yeah, so we'll drop this. We're dropping this plus episode 11.
We're giving you some mysteries.
And then next week we're doing Egypt along with the Michael Jordan conspiracy. But that's all going to be one episode. We'll just kind of split that in 2. But yeah, guys, thank you for listening. As always, thank you for listening to the Mystery Bros. And peace out.
Peace.
Mystery Bros. Mystery Bros.
Mystery Bros.
Mystery Bros.
Mystery Bros.
Mystery Bros. Mystery Bros.